The volcanic world of Varkanis was famous across the Orion Arm for two things: its oceans of lava that glowed like burning rivers, and its warrior matriarchs who believed strength was the only honest language. Almost every species who visited the planet arrived with fear in their hearts. But the Terran envoy ship Resolute Dawn arrived with something different hope. Captain Elias Rourke stood near the ship's exit ramp, hands behind his back, breathing in the thick air. The gravity on Varkanis was heavy, even worse than Earth's. Most humans would feel their knees shaking. But Rourke had served in the Terran Marines for 12 years. Heavy gravity was nothing new. He rolled his shoulders once, loosening the tension, as the hatch opened with a hiss. Behind him, the Terran ambassadors checked their tablets and adjusted their formal clothes, trying to look calm. They did not feel calm. The last time humans visited Varkanis, the meeting ended with misunderstandings, arguments, and nearly a duel. This time, Earth wanted peace, trade, and hopefully, an alliance. But to get that, they had to earn respect, and respect on Varkanis never came easily. Rourke walked down the ramp first, following protocol. Guards always moved ahead in dangerous territory. The sky above him was dark orange, thick with ash drifting from distant volcanoes. The air smelled of metal and heat. Rows of Varkanian warriors waited outside the landing zone, their obsidian armor reflecting the firelight from the molten lakes in the distance. The warriors were all women, tall, broad, reptilian humanoids with scales like polished stone. They stood with their arms crossed, their sharp eyes fixed on the humans. The tallest among them stepped forward. Her presence was commanding, like a living statue carved from the planet itself. This was Commander Krizara, champion of the southern tribes. "So," she said, her voice deep and echoing. "These are the Terrans, who speak of peace." Rourke bowed respectfully. "We come with good intentions." Krizara's mouth curled into something that looked like a smirk. "We hear, humans are soft. We hear your bodies bend easily. We hear your spirits shake, like leaves." Rourke did not answer. He simply met her gaze. Calm. Steady. The ambassadors behind him shifted uncomfortably. They had been warned about the Varkanian tradition called the first trial. Before any negotiation could begin, one warrior had the right to test the physical strength of a visitor. Most species hated it but accepted it, because refusing the trial meant refusing the meeting. To the Terran's surprise, Krizara raised her hand and pointed directly at Rourke. "This one," she declared. "I will test this human." One of the ambassadors whispered, "Captain, remember to stay relaxed. They expect you to fall. They won't hurt you too badly." Rourke gave a tiny nod. He understood the rules better than anyone. Varkanians did not aim to kill during the first trial. It was meant to measure the guests' courage, not destroy them. But the warriors always expected screams, fear, or at least a stumble. Rourke stepped forward onto the dark stone platform at the center of the gathering. Flames from nearby lava streams cast long shadows behind him. Krizara circled him slowly, her talons clicking against the ground. Other warriors whispered among themselves. Some were amused. Some were bored. Some looked excited, hoping for entertainment. After all, humans were small compared to them. Lighter. Slower. Weaker. At least by reputation. Rourke stood with his feet planted firmly. He inhaled once, exhaled once, and kept his face calm. "So quiet," Krizara said. "Not begging, not shaking." She gave a wide, toothy grin. "Your bravery is admirable. Or foolish." Rourke said nothing. Krizara finally stopped in front of him. She lifted her right hand, spreading her fingers. Her palm alone was nearly the size of Rourke's chest. This was not going to be a gentle tap. It was going to be a full strike, a warrior's strike. The ambassadors held their breath. The Varkanian spectators leaned forward. The heat of the planet pulsed through the air like a heartbeat. Krizara drew back her arm, scales shimmering in the firelight. "Let the first trial begin," she declared. Then her hand shot forward. Her palm collided with Rourke's torso in one powerful strike, the kind that could knock over a metal crate or force a lesser alien to their knees. The sound cracked through the courtyard like a whip, but something strange happened. Rourke did not move. He did not bend. He did not make a sound. For a single stunned moment, the entire crowd froze. Then another sound echoed, a sharp, snapping crack. Krizara's expression twisted. She jerked her hand back and stared at it. Her wrist, thick, strong, armored with scales, was bent at an unnatural angle. Pain flashed across her face as the truth settled in. She had broken her own hand. Gasps rippled through the warriors. Some stepped back. Others stared at Rourke like he was something impossible. Humans were not known for physical toughness. No one believed their bodies could withstand a Varkanian strike without collapsing. Yet Rourke's uniform barely had a wrinkle. Slowly, carefully, he gave a respectful nod. "Trial completed, Commander." His voice was steady, polite. Krizara, clutching her injured hand, looked at him with wide, stunned eyes. For the first time in many seasons, she had no words. The smirk she wore earlier had disappeared completely. The Varkanian warriors whispered heatedly among themselves. Some murmured admiration. Some murmured shock. Some murmured fear. But one thing was clear to every single one of them. This human was not soft. This human was not weak. This human was something else entirely. And in that moment, before any negotiation even began, Elias Rourke had earned something few outsiders ever received on Varkanis: respect. For several long seconds, the courtyard on Varkanis stayed completely silent. The air trembled with heat from nearby lava pools, but no one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the slow crackling of molten rivers sliding down the black hills. Commander Krizara, proud champion of the warrior matriarchs, kept staring at her broken hand as if she could not believe it belonged to her. The joint was swollen, scales cracked in 3 places. Her fingers twitched in pain, yet her shock was greater than the injury. In front of her, Captain Elias Rourke stood as calmly as ever. His feet were planted firmly on the ground. He breathed steadily. His shirt had barely shifted. The place on his torso where her strike had landed showed no bruise, no mark, not even a sign that he felt discomfort. The Terran ambassadors behind him were just as stunned as the Varkanians. One whispered, "Did she actually break her hand on him?" Another whispered back, "I think she did." A wave of murmurs spread through the Varkanian crowd. Their voices grew louder as shock turned into amazement. No outsider has ever resisted her strike. Is he some kind of enhanced being? He did not flinch. Not even once. His body is like forged metal. The Varkanian warriors had spent their entire lives in high gravity, under constant training. Their muscle density was known throughout the galaxy. To them, humans were small creatures, from a softer world. No one had expected a human to remain standing after a trained warrior's blow. Krizara finally lowered her hand and looked at Rourke. Her voice, usually strong and edged with pride, was softer now. You are not what our records said," she admitted. Rourke answered with simple politeness. "I'm just doing my duty, Commander." His calm tone surprised the warriors again. Not arrogance. Not mockery. Just respectful strength. A healer rushed toward Krizara, carrying a green glowing resin bandage. She bowed before touching the injured hand. "Commander, may I?" Krizara nodded. "Do it." The healer worked quickly, rubbing a gel around the broken scales. The gel hardened into a smooth cast, stabilizing the injury. Krizara's jaw tightened as she endured the treatment, but her eyes never left Rourke. Meanwhile, the court elders stepped forward. They were older Varkanian women with gray patterns on their scales, wearing robes of woven volcanic glass. One of them raised her staff, signaling silence. The crowd obeyed instantly. The elder spoke in a voice that echoed across the courtyard. This human has passed the first trial. He has endured a champion's strike. Negotiations may begin. But before the next ceremony could start, Krizara raised her good hand. Wait. Everyone turned to her. I must speak, she said. She walked toward Rourke, stopping only a few steps away. Even injured, she towered above him. But this time, she did not carry the same superior posture. She looked at him as an equal. When I struck you, she said, I used the strength that brought down stone beasts in the northern wilds. I used the same force that cracked a training pillar last season. You should not be standing. Rourke didn't know what to say to that. He had trained hard his whole life, but he was still human, just a dedicated soldier, not some legend from a tale. So he simply replied, Humans learn to adapt. We grew strong because we had to. Krizara studied him as if analyzing every word. Your body resisted me. Your spirit did not shake. These things matter to my people. Before Rourke could answer, another Varkanian warrior stepped forward. She was younger, scales a lighter shade of blue, and she eyed Rourke with obvious curiosity. Commander, may I test him too? She asked boldly. Several warriors murmured, yes, excitedly. They wanted more proof, more demonstration, but Krizara held up her uninjured hand. No. The first trial is completed. Further tests would be disrespectful. He has already proven himself. The younger warrior bowed her head, accepting the decision. The elder with the staff nodded approvingly. Then let us return to the Hall of Trials. The humans have earned the right to speak. The ambassadors sighed in relief. They had been afraid negotiations would end before they began. As everyone prepared to move, Krizara stepped beside Rourke again. Human, she said quietly. I owe you a question. Rourke looked up at her. What question? She leaned closer, though not threateningly. Tell me, how did a species like yours become so tough? Rourke considered his answer. He thought about Earth, its storms, its oceans, its mountains, its struggles, its wars, its triumphs. He thought about how humans kept moving, even when their world tried to break them. Finally, he said, because we had to fight for everything. We learned to get back up again and again. Maybe our strength doesn't come from our bodies. Maybe it comes from our will. Krizara slowly smiled, not a mocking smirk this time, but genuine interest. A will that breaks bone, she said, glancing at her cast. Impressive. As the group began walking toward the Hall of Trials, word spread quickly through the capital city. By the time they reached the main gates, more Varkanians had gathered along the path. Dozens of warriors. Then hundreds. Whispers followed Rourke everywhere. That is the human who stood against Krizara. His chest stopped her strike. He must be made of iron. No steel. No, something even stronger. For the first time, the Terran flags displayed on their uniforms were looked at with curiosity instead of scorn. Inside the Hall of Trials, the walls glowed with veins of molten rock flowing beneath black crystal. The building was enormous, built to honor strength. Sculptures of past champions lined the room, and now humans were being welcomed inside. The elder raised her staff again. Let us begin. But before she could start the negotiation ritual, Krizara spoke once more. This human, she said loudly, has shown that his people are not weak. Let all here know Terrans have earned my respect. The hall erupted in murmurs of approval. Rourke did not smile, but his eyes softened. Respect from a Varkanian champion was rare and valuable. The ambassadors exchanged relieved looks. Humanity had taken a massive step forward, and all because one man refused to fall. The Hall of Trials was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It felt less like a building and more like a mountain carved from the planet's heart. Tall black columns stretched upward, glowing faintly with orange lines from molten veins running deep beneath the surface. Each column carried carvings of past Varkanian warriors, some holding giant beasts above their heads, others standing proudly on broken weapons, from battles long forgotten. Yet today, the hall was quieter than usual. Every warrior inside was focused on one thing: the human who had just proven himself through unshakable strength. Captain Elias Rourke walked beside the ambassadors, his steps steady, his expression calm. He could feel every eye on him, but he didn't let it show. He wasn't here for fame. He was here to help build peace. Commander Krizara walked slightly behind him, her broken hand protected in a glowing resin cast. She didn't show pain. Varkanians rarely did. But her respect for Rourke was now clear in the way she carried herself near him. Not proudly above him. Not dismissively. Side by side. The Terran ambassadors exchanged looks of amazement. They had studied Varkanian culture for years. They had read countless warnings. The video comedy. The Terran ambassadors. They had read countless warnings. They respect only power. They trust only those who prove themselves. Do not show fear. But nothing in their training had suggested that one human could shift the entire atmosphere by standing still during a single strike. The elder with the staff led the group to a large circular platform at the hall's center. The floor here was made of dark stone, polished so smooth it reflected the firelight like water. "We begin the sharing of strength," the elder announced. "Terrans will show us their discipline, and Varkanians will show them ours." Rourke understood that this was a rare invitation. The sharing of strength was not just a demonstration, it was a sign of trust. A ritual where warriors exchanged training techniques, not to show superiority but to learn. Krizara stepped forward and addressed the humans. "We wish to see how a Terran trains his body. How your kind builds such resilience." The ambassadors turned to Rourke. "Captain," one whispered, "would you be willing to demonstrate? Nothing dangerous, just something simple." Rourke nodded. "I can do that." He stepped onto the platform. The Varkanian warriors gathered in a circle around him, curious and serious. Some stood with arms folded, some leaned forward eagerly, and some simply watched with respect. Rourke began by stretching slow, controlled movements. To him, they were ordinary warm-ups. But to the Varkanians, they were fascinating. "He moves like water," one warrior whispered. "But his muscles stay tight like stone," another replied. After stretching, Rourke dropped to the ground and performed push-ups. His movements were steady, strong, and precise, not rushed, not sloppy. The Varkanians murmured among themselves. "He uses only his body weight? Such simple exercise, yet effective. Maybe strength does not always require battle." Rourke then moved into planks, holding his body straight and unwavering. Minutes passed. He did not tremble. He did not lower himself. Krizara was watching closely. "Humans train their cores like this?" she asked. Rourke nodded, still holding the plank. "This helps build stability, balance, endurance. A strong center holds the rest together." Krizara touched her injured cast lightly. "Yes," she said in a thoughtful tone. "I learned that today." A ripple of laughter spread gently through the hall, not mocking, but respectful and warm. Even Rourke allowed himself a tiny smile. When he finished demonstrating, he stood and waited. Now it was the Varkanians' turn. The elder raised her staff again. "Show them our discipline." A warrior named Rinsha stepped forward. She was shorter than Krizara, but still taller than any human. Her scales were midnight blue, and her eyes bright green. She began demonstrating Varkanian combat forms: wide, grounded stances, sweeping arm movements, and strikes that cracked the air with force. Every motion was precise, carrying the strength of someone trained since childhood. Rourke watched carefully. He admired their technique, Their style was powerful but controlled exactly what he respected in warriors. Rincha finished with a bow. This is our way. To stay rooted. To strike through the ground itself. Rourke nodded. Strong foundation. Makes sense. The sharing continued. Varkanians showed balance exercises performed on narrow stone beams. Rourke demonstrated footwork drills used by Terran Marines. The warriors analyzed every movement, asking questions, testing positions, comparing methods. Soon, the atmosphere felt less like a negotiation and more like a gathering of old allies learning from one another. Even the ambassadors relaxed. One of them whispered to another, "This is going better than we dreamed." After the demonstrations ended, Krizara approached Rourke again. Her voice was softer than earlier, more open. "You surprised us today," she said. "And Varkanians do not change their opinions easily." Rourke wiped sweat from his forehead. "I didn't come to impress. I came to help our people understand one another." Krizara stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "And you did both." Other warriors stepped closer, forming a loose semicircle around the humans. Some asked small questions, nothing hostile, only curious. "Do all humans train like you? What is your homeworld like? Are you born strong, or do you choose strength?" Rourke answered honestly. "We aren't born strong. We become strong. Because life on Earth is hard. The weather shifts. The land changes. The world tests you. Again and again. Like our world," one warrior said, nodding slowly. "Maybe that is why we can be allies," another added. The elders raised their staffs again. "You have shared strength. Now we may share words." The ambassadors prepared their data tablets and stepped onto the negotiation platform. But this time, they were not facing a suspicious council. They were speaking to warriors who had already opened the door of respect. Negotiations began smoother than expected. The Varkanians listened. They asked thoughtful questions. They considered agreements with care, not suspicion. And through it all, Krizara stood near Rourke, not as an opponent, but as an equal. As the talks ended for the day, the elder spoke warmly. "Today, we learned something important. Human strength is not only in muscle, it is in spirit." Rourke bowed his head. Krizara touched her chest in a Varkanian sign of honor. "Tomorrow, we will continue. There is much more to learn." Rourke nodded. Agreed. For the first time since humanity met the warrior race of Varkanis, the future felt less like a battlefield and more like a bridge. A bridge built, not with demands, but with respect. The next morning, the sky of Varkanis burned with the usual orange glow. Clouds of ash drifted through the air like slow-moving shadows. The heat was heavy, but the atmosphere inside the Hall of Trials felt different, calmer, more open, even hopeful. Captain Elias Rourke stood at the steps of the hall, looking out at the lava fields stretching to the horizon. He wasn't nervous. He was focused. Today would be important. Today, the Terrans and Varkanians would try to build something new. Behind him, the Terran ambassadors arranged their documents, whispered details to each other, and prepared for another long day of talks. They were tired, but hopeful. Yesterday's sharing of strength had changed everything. It had opened doors that years of diplomatic talks never could. As the humans waited, Krizara approached from the other side of the courtyard. Her broken hand was still in its glowing cast, but she moved with steady confidence. Several Varkanian warriors followed behind her, but their stance was different from before. There was no hostility now, only respect. "Human," Krizara called out, stopping beside Rourke. "Are you ready?" Rourke nodded. She gave a small smile. More than yesterday. The group entered the hall together. Warriors bowed their heads slightly as Rourke passed. It was subtle, but it meant everything. Varkanians bowed only to those they considered worthy. Inside, the elders were waiting. "Let us begin the negotiations," one said. The ambassadors took their positions, forming a circle around a table carved from obsidian. Bright orange lines glowed beneath its surface, making it look like it was alive. Rourke remained standing behind them, silent but steady, a symbol of human strength. The first topics discussed were trade routes, resource sharing, and protection agreements. Every point that had once felt impossible now seemed reasonable. The Varkanians listened carefully. They no longer doubted human resilience or commitment. At one point, a warrior elder asked, "If danger comes to our borders, will Terrans stand with us?" Before the ambassadors could respond, Krizara spoke. "I believe they will. I have seen their strength." Rourke nodded. "If we are allies, we will stand together." The elder smiled in approval. "Good. Then we continue." Hours passed. Agreements were drafted. Old misunderstandings were cleared. The hall buzzed with focused energy, like a great machine finally running smoothly. But the calm did not last. Suddenly, a young warrior rushed into the hall, breathing hard. "Elders! We have urgent news." Everyone turned to her. "Scouts report movement near the western border," she announced. "A group from the Iron Claw tribes. They are approaching fast." A heavy silence fell. The Iron Claw tribes were known troublemakers. Rebels who refused the leadership of the warrior matriarchs. They disliked outsiders. They rejected peace. They believed the galaxy should fear Varkanis, not respect it. Krizara's expression darkened. "How many?" "3 war squads," the scout replied. "Armed. Heading toward the capital." The ambassadors looked worried. One whispered, "This could ruin everything." "We Conritter, wary thing." Another whispered back, "If violence starts, we'll have to retreat." But Rourke stepped forward. "What do you need from us?" he asked Krizara, calmly. She looked at him with surprise. "You wish to help?" "Of course," he said. "Allies stand together." His tone carried no hesitation, no fear, only determination. The elders exchanged glances. Then the eldest spoke. "If Terrans help defend the capital, if it will prove their honor without question." Krizara placed her uninjured hand on her chest. "Then let us face this together." Rourke gave a short nod. Minutes later, Rourke and several Terran guards followed Krizara and her warriors through the blazing streets of the capital. Streams of molten lava ran beside the roads like glowing rivers. The sky trembled with heat waves. Varkanian citizens watched anxiously from safe areas as the warriors moved. From the city's western wall, smoke could be seen rising in the distance. The Iron Claw squads were approaching. Rourke stood beside Krizara on the high stone platform. Warriors tightened their grips on their weapons. The Terrans checked their gear. Krizara glanced at Rourke. "If things turn violent, you do not have to stand in the front. You have proved yourself. Already." Rourke shook his head. "Strength doesn't matter if it's only shown once. It matters when it's used to protect others." Krizara stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. "You speak like a true warrior. Please. You speak like a true warrior." The Iron Claw squads marched closer, large reptilian fighters wearing spiked armor, carrying heavy blades, shouting challenges. Their leader, a tall warrior with red stripes across her scales, stepped forward. "Krizara!" she roared. "We will not accept outsiders. End your talks, or we end them for you." Krizara stepped forward boldly. "You will not threaten our city. Stand down." The Iron Claw leader laughed. "You are weak. You let humans walk inside our sacred halls." Rourke stepped beside Krizara. "If you want to test strength," he said calmly, "I volunteer." The Iron Claw warriors fell silent. The leader blinked in confusion. "A human challenges us?" Krizara whispered. You do not have to do this. Rourke whispered back. I know. The leader growled. Fine, little Terran. But Rourke didn't move. Instead, he spoke loudly, so all could hear. We don't need to fight if we stand as one. Humans don't come to break Varkanis. We come to build something stronger. His voice echoed off the stone walls. Several Iron Claw warriors shifted uncomfortably. They expected fear. They expected retreat. But they heard courage instead. Krizara took a step forward. Hear him. Terrans have shown strength, respect, and honor. You fight shadows in your mind, not truth. The red-striped leader hesitated. Rourke held her gaze. If you attack, you will break your own unity. But if you join us, you build a future your children will be proud of. Long silence followed. Finally, the Iron Claw leader lowered her weapon. We will not attack today, she said. We will watch and judge. With that, the rebels slowly retreated. The city erupted in relief. Krizara turned to Rourke, awe clear in her eyes. You did not win through strength this time, she said. You won through wisdom. Rourke smiled slightly. Both matter. That evening, back in the Hall of Trials, the elders finalized the agreement. A new alliance. Varkanis and Earth standing together. At the signing ceremony, Krizara raised her casted hand proudly. Let it be known, she declared, that the Terrans earned our respect not by demanding it, but by proving it. Rourke nodded. And humans will honor this friendship. The elder stamped the agreement with molten sealstone. The alliance was complete. And in the glowing heat of the Varkanian night, a new chapter between two powerful species began. One forged not in fear, but in strength, courage, and respect.